I'd like to ask you about your music. It's been gaining quite a bit of popularity all over the world right now. And how do you perceive this? What brought about the interest in Hall and Oats?
I think there's a number of things. Well, I guess it's the same in the world as it is in America as far as the reasons. One thing is that we're producing ourselves, and I think it's a more honest and obvious version of what it is that we do. So it's easier for people to understand what we're all about. And the easier it is for people to understand it, the more we'll buy it, I suppose. And also, I think that the shift of music, at least American music, has gone from the West Coast, which dominated American music for 10 years, back to the East Coast. And we're certainly East Coast musicians, and I think that our style of music reflects that.
Any comments to make on that?
No, I agree with that.
But it seems quite a bit similar to when like Chris Bond was producing you.
Our music?
Yeah, right.
It doesn't seem similar to us.
Really?
It's very different, especially in the production style.
Really?
Yeah, the music sounds the way we want it to sound now, as opposed to the way Chris wanted it to sound, which is different.
Really? Well, like what specifically? Like what sort of different things?
Like we play the beat on in regular time rather than half time, and we use different kinds of instruments. It's a more band-oriented production.
I think that's the main thing too.
It's more sparse and more spontaneous.
Has it actually changed over the years, though? The actual music?
It changes over each year. Each album is just there's some sort of development musically or whatever production-wise. It's always changing.
So, do you think it's a case of the times having caught up with you, or you having caught up with the times?
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I think it's not caught up, or it's just coincided with whatever, you know. We have a certain kind of self-induced or whatever evolution in our music, and it seems to have coincided with what people want to hear.
Apparently, in an interview recently, you claimed that you've discovered the technique of making a hit. What makes a hit now?
Did we say that?
Yeah.
I think that must be someone else.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like us.
I think I read it.
I wish that we had. I don't think there is a technique.
No.
We just discovered the technique in making our music sound the way we want it. That's as far as we can get with it. We don't know anything about hits. We leave that to the businessmen.
What about your old stuff, though? I mean, like off some of the earlier albums, a lot of that could have been hits. What?
Well, that's well, they could have been hits, I guess. You know, why weren't they? Is that what you were going to say? For the same reason we don't know why they are, and the same reason we don't know why they weren't. I mean, you know, pop music is a fickle thing. I mean, you know, right now we're in sync with what people want, and then I guess we weren't.
It also depends on what radio wants to play at the time. You know, they weren't ready to play our kind of music in mass maybe 5 years ago.
Right.
So what you were talking about, I believe, hits being with communication in the true sense of the word. What exactly did you mean by this? This was in the same interview. I believe it was in Musician, Player, and Listener.
It's mass communication. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, pop music is what it is. It's popular, meaning that it reaches the peoples. And you know, when you have a hit, a lot of people hear it more than if you don't have a hit. Especially in AM radio in America. Because it sort of it reaches the cross section of people that aren't only music lovers and rock fans and album buyers, but it reaches the casual music listener. So it tends to increase many times the amount of people who would normally hear your music.
And also, you're communicating inner thoughts as opposed to political type slogans or whatever things are normally communicated in other mediums. That's the good thing about popular music. Is that it's really something that's vital, that's being communicated on a mass level rather than like I said before.
So there's a conscious effort keeping music and politics separate in your case.
Well, I think that okay, sure. Simply yes.
Yeah, you want to keep that element out of your music.
I want to keep the overt political jargon and all that kind of thing out of our music. Yeah, I think that our music is political in its own way, though.
What way? What do you mean by that?
In we have an underlying theme that's run through our music, and it's our point of view, and I think it has a lot to do with understanding oneself and the way people relate to each other, which is the basis of all politics, is personal politics. and how you feel about yourself and the people around you.
And what do you base this? It's all based on your own experiences, then.
Yeah,
Everything,
all
basically.
our music is based on
Just
basic, real things that happen.
Your own feelings just transform straight into music.
Sure.
Or said in some way that hopefully we can get the message across without being too overt.
How many years have you been together now?
10.
Total of 10 years now.
10 years,
And I guess there have been a lot of ups and downs. What about the press? What have you learned about them? How do you handle the press?
Well,
The press is different where in different countries and also at different times. Like for instance, right now in America, the rock press is a fairly ineffectual group of people. They don't dictate trends like they used to. They can't make or break you like they did in the early days of the 70s and the late 60s when they had a lot of power. Whereas in England, the rock press is sort of still sort of a power to be reckoned with, even though they're completely
off the wall.
Off the wall, right.
And
I mean, it depends. I mean, here in Japan, for instance, the photo magazine style books, that press is the most important thing you can do here, even more than say radio or whatever. So that's you handle the press in a different way in each place.
Well, you talk about the U.S. press no longer being able to make or break artists, but what makes an artist in America right now?
Radio play.
Radio play.
Yeah.
And it's all radio.
And live work.
And live work.
Yes.
But a lot of people have been saying, though, it's too expensive to go out on the road. Nobody can do it anymore.
Not really. It depends on how you want to go out. It's possible to go out, just with a van and a couple roadies or whatever. It's hard to put up a big show. That's an expensive proposition. You have to sell tickets in order to make up the nut they call it. But it's quite possible to do it.
How do you make ends meet yourself?
Well, we sell tickets.
Yeah, by playing the kind of venues that you can sell, and not living in some kind of... one thing that's happened in the music business in the last few years is I think there's been a good solid dose of reality laid down, which the music business hadn't been operating on in the last couple of years, in previous years.
What do you mean by that?
I think, people doing things like, shipping millions of copies of albums and not really selling them, but getting returns and wasting a lot of people's energy and money. Bands being unrealistic about the kind of venues that they could actually play, and because of egos or because of past reputations, playing huge places like Madison Square Garden and not being able to fill them up. Again, wasting time and energy. So people are a little more realistic about what they do now. They have to be.
And that's pretty much the attitude you guys are taking also. Very realistic, brass tacks.
We like to think so, yeah.
Yeah, well,
that's the way,
I think anybody that's doing it now and is being successful doing it has to take that attitude. I think we're the only ones doing it by any means.
Are you both like, I don't know what you'd say, journeyman musician, I guess? Is that all you have, or have you ever contemplated other trades?
Well, I had a really good thing going in the discount drug business. I was unloading Listerine out of trucks, and that was really I almost quit music for that.
Is that the extent of your non-music?
Other than supermarket work,
Is that right?
I had a long-term apprenticeship in supermarkets.
ちょっと間に挟んでいい？俺の質問。いい？
なんて it's rather long question.
You're going to be able to translate?
Yeah, got it all down here. He's been following your career for quite a while now, and through the years, you've kind of been recognized as makers of the real thing, authentic, good, quality music, in his opinion. He thinks that Private Eyes was somewhat of a sellout, though, in terms of the sound. No, real criticism here. He thinks it's sort of a maybe you were kind of pandering to commercial tastes in a way.
I see what it means.
However, with H2O now, he thinks you've returned back to where you had been coming from before. What was the concept behind H2O? Was it that much different from Private Eyes, or is this all going on in his head?
Well, I don't know. It wasn't anything conscious on our part. I think that Private Eyes was the closest album that we've ever done to another album, meaning Voices. And we did that because we wanted to follow up what we were doing. We wanted to, usually we take a pretty large step from album to album. I would say that Voices to Private Eyes was not a very large step, but the Voices album was the first one we had produced, so we were just kind of feeling our way, saying, okay, now we got it right, now let's do it again, that kind of thing.
We're cementing what we had finally established after 10 years.
But it was certainly not pandering to any taste other than our own, because we never do.
What do you mean by getting back to the same sort of feeling as Voices? I don't quite follow you there. You mean H2O is more like Voices than it's like Private Eyes? Yeah,
in that it was a step, a pretty large step forward from the previous album. I think that we always try and it's not even trying. We naturally move pretty quickly, and in the year, usually 1 year between one album and another, a lot happens that causes us to make a pretty large step. That didn't happen so much from Voices to Private Eyes, is what I was trying to say.
So, I mean, in that, I think his gut feeling is probably right, although we were not pandering to commerciality. We were just reinforcing what we had finally felt was the right thing to do. And now that we established a certain level at that, now we can continue to move on at our own pace, I think.
Just out of curiosity, how do you compare Voices and Private Eyes today? Are you happy more with one than the other? Or?
No. I mean, we like them both. I see them as different, but I can understand why someone would see them as being similar.
I think there was a lot of spirit, the spirit that went into the Voices album, that the same kind of spirit went into the H2O album.
Yeah.
Whereas the Private Eyes album was not quite the same kind of feeling going on.
Not that it was less fun to make or anything, it was a different kind of feeling.
That's something only we would know because we were involved in the making of it. But, that's how we judge our albums as well, by what was going on when we were making it. That's, I mean, as far as, even on our past albums, when we hear them, we relate the experience of making them as much as the sound of what we're hearing.
You've had a lot of different periods in your career, and I guess the last three albums have all been, I guess you can kind of group them all in the same period.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah.
Is this going to continue?
Renaissance. Easter, we call it Easter. On the third day. Yeah.
Is this going to continue for quite a while?
We hope so.
Until the well runs dry.
Well, as long as we're feeling good, and I think that I think with the Voices album, we rediscovered something about ourselves that had been lacking for a while, especially in the production style. I think we finally hit on something we feel really good about, and we have a band now that was started again with the Voices, and various people in that are still around, and we work with the same band as we record with, and it feels like a really good unit, and I don't know, I feel a lot of good things. It's just going to keep going.
I was going to say that I think the concept of the well running dry is not valid. We're natural musicians, and I think we'll always make music. I don't think our wells will ever run dry. People may not want to drink the water, but
well put. Yeah.
昔聞かれたことあると思うけども。
I don't know if you remember this quote from one of your interviews as well, but apparently you said once that you were blessed with somewhat favorable looks, and that has accounted for some of your success here.
I don't know where these come from. I never said that. I would be very disappointed in my life and myself if my looks had anything to do with my success.
Is that right?
Yes. I don't even think about looks.
じゃあそういう発言を置いといてして、
But are you ever sort of accused of that at all? Using your looks as a vehicle to...
I think he was addressing you, Daryl.
Me? No.
Oh, I don't know.
Let's put it this way. Anybody that accuses me of that, if they say it to me, they will be kicked in the ass. Very hard.
But you've never been accused of that.
Well, I'm sure a bunch of assholes have said that about us, but that's their problem.
Yeah, I mean, we happen to have a unique look. I think we're very different, obviously. Tall, short, large, that whole bit, which is, I guess, just a natural phenomenon that we are fortunately or unfortunately enough to possess.
Okay,
We planned it, we really did.
Okay. Well, let's not. Well, exactly. Well, let's not dwell on this. What about this idea of image then? You've gone through a number of images.
Our image is that we don't have an image.
Right now, it seems like you don't have an image at all.
No.
Yeah.
We're honest people. Honest people. People change. We change. That's honest. We never thought about image. The image is something that's created by other people. At least in our situation, we're not the kind of creative organization that bases our success or failure on image. I think there's too much emphasis on image in pop music and rock music, and we care about music, and that's all that ever mattered and ever will matter.
I think in retrospect we should have cared a little bit more about the way we were portrayed and perceived in the press in the past, and the fact that we didn't take more care with the way we were presented was part of the reason people ask questions like you're asking.
We were allowed to be misrepresented, I think, in a lot of cases.
And now we do realize what the importance of it, but just as our music has become more natural and clear through our own self-production, we've sort of taken control over our music, our musical aspect of our lives. We've also taken control of the other parts, and I think everything we do now is just very straight ahead, very straightforward, and what it is, what you see is basically what you get.
It seems that way. What about the famous Silver album?
Well, there you go. That's a perfect example of what I was just saying. That was someone else's concept of how he perceived us. We took it very tongue-in-cheek at the time, but we didn't realize how serious people would take something like that. But, I thought it was kind of fun. But it didn't, wasn't that important to me, and maybe it should have been a little more important.
What do you mean? This will overlap with what we were just talking about a second ago. It deals with the idea of you producing yourselves. You kind of, I guess you basically know your way around the studio right now. I mean, you can produce yourself with quite a bit of ease right now. And you develop your own sort of style. Now that you have this style developed, is there anyone you'd like to work with, any producer you'd like to try out?
Not really, because a producer was always a translator to us, to studio musicians and outsiders. That's the only reason we ever used a producer. What we did about 5 years ago is to try and stop everything and get a band together and get on this road to self-production. Because, again, that's the only way that we felt that we could do something honest, an honest statement. A producer would be irrelevant at this point in our creative process. There would be nothing for him to do.
And I think the same interview, once again, you had very harsh words for, I think, Barbra Streisand, saying that you had no interest in producing her or producing anybody. Have there been a lot of offers?
It wasn't against Barbra Streisand. It was, her name may have been mentioned as an example of something, but I have nothing.
I guess maybe you're referring to Barry Gibb doing her.
Oh,
yeah, that's what we were referring to.
Yeah.
When the Bee Gees had a lot of success, immediately, there's a lot of artists. Well, maybe we shouldn't call them artists. There's a lot of people making records who really aren't very creative. I mean, they may some of them sing very well, and but they need almost in the old style. They're always looking for a tune, some material, and they're also trying to hang on the coattails of whoever happens to be successful at the moment, in order to sort of reach their sound, or at least
to stay current,
and stay vital. And there's a lot of people out there like that. We had offers from various people.
They're still having them right now.
In the last few years, and that's basically what if Barbra Streisand's name came up, was used in that context.
And you're not going to take advantage of these offers?
I don't think so. No. I don't see anybody. I don't think we don't have much time to do anything. In fact, we don't have any time to do anything other than what we're doing. And if we did have the time, I would want to spend it wisely and do something that would be significant as well as just making some money. I mean, I want to make money too, but there's plenty of people around at our town that we could use.
The kind of situation you're talking about is something where someone just wants basically a hit record.
Yeah.
And if we have a hit record, we're going to do it ourselves.
彼らは非常に勤勉なバンドでしてね、とにかく
And nice. They're a very diligent band. You make a lot of records and do a lot of touring. What about vacations? When do you?
We don't have any.
You don't have any?
No.
Really?
No.
And we leave them to go.
Yeah, right. I had yesterday off.
Yeah. We have tonight off.
What about your respective spouses? Don't they have?
We're not married. But our girlfriends, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, they're used to it. They've been living. Well, I won't say living with us because we're not there very much. But they've been living in our apartments and sharing apartments with us for a while, so they understand. But we did go to England to work just for the past 3 weeks, and they came along. So sometimes it comes.
I think it's making, we don't have that much time. We don't spend that much time off. But the time we spend off, making the most of it is just as meaningful as having a lot of it.
日本は休むことを恐れているやることが分かんなくなっちゃう。
It's like the Japanese people. They work constantly because they have this fear of going on vacation or resting. Are you the same way?
Yeah, we're very Japanese in that way.
I don't know. No, I don't think it's from fear of resting. I'd love to rest. We can't. We have too much to do.
But it's all, and no one's forcing us to do this.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that's true. I don't know. I'd have to examine myself. I don't like to not work. So maybe that is true.
Yeah, I mean, you have to enjoy doing it. You work as hard as we do.
Other than two.
それ時間だしね。
One last question. Other than touring as Hall and Oats members or making albums as Hall and Oats members, what would you want to do with your lives?
Other than
your
music?
future? Yeah. Or not other than make music. I mean, it could involve other musical projects.
Well,
other things would you want to do?
We don't know yet, but we would like to do something. We're looking for some time. I mean, I think we both like to do solo albums and work with some other people. Collaboration with some other people. But that all takes time.
Anybody in mind in particular?
I might do some with August, so I know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Kid Creole and Coconuts.
Yeah.
What about you?
I don't have anyone in mind right now, no. But there's plenty of people that are always, fun to. I think it's nice to write with other people. You get a different feeling, different ideas.
What about solo album? Have you ever thought of that?
Yeah, I'm definitely thinking about it. But here again, it has to be the right time and the right reason.
Have you seen Robert Fripp these days?
I haven't seen him for a while now.
一つだけ、お互いにね、相手の長所と欠点を一言ずつ言ってもらえる。お互いに相手の長所と欠点。
He wants each of you to list the other's strong points and weak points.
Strong points and weak points. Whenever they ask us to do this, we can never do it.
Yeah, I guess you must get that.
That's a hard question.
Yeah.
Hall evaluates Oates, Oates evaluates Hall.
Okay, next answer.
All right.
Weakness, Indian food.
There you go.
Seriously, how about just let's concentrate on the strong points? Let's make this positive.
We're not allowed to compliment each other. That's one of the premises of our working relationship.
Yeah.
You're two East Coast people.
Yeah.
That's all.
どうもありがとうございます。
All right, well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
じゃあ、ちょっと立って、
I'd like to ask you about your music. It's been gaining quite a bit of popularity all over the world right now. And how do you perceive this? What brought about the interest in Hall and Oats?
I think there's a number of things. Well, I guess it's the same in the world as it is in America as far as the reasons. One thing is that we're producing ourselves, and I think it's a more honest and obvious version of what it is that we do. So it's easier for people to understand what we're all about. And the easier it is for people to understand it, the more we'll buy it, I suppose. And also, I think that the shift of music, at least American music, has gone from the West Coast, which dominated American music for 10 years, back to the East Coast. And we're certainly East Coast musicians, and I think that our style of music reflects that.
Any comments to make on that?
No, I agree with that.
But
Yeah.
We have a certain kind of self-induced or whatever evolution in our music, and it seems to have coincided with what people want to hear.
apparently, in an interview recently, you claimed that you've discovered the technique of making a hit. What makes a hit now?
Did we say that?
Yeah.
I think that must be someone else.
Yeah, that doesn't sound
Yeah,
like
I think
us.
I read it.
I wish that we had. I don't think there is a technique.
No.
We just discovered the technique in making our music sound the way we want it. That's as
Right.
far as we can get with it. We don't know anything about hits. We leave that to the businessmen.
What about your old stuff, though? I mean, like off some of the earlier albums, a lot of that could have been hits. What?
Well, that's yeah. Well, they could have been hits, I guess. Why weren't they? Is that what you were going to say?
Mhm.
For the same reason we don't know why they are, and the same reason we don't know why they weren't. I mean, pop music is a fickle thing. I mean,
It seems quite a bit similar to when like Chris Bond was producing you.
Our music
Yeah, right.
doesn't
now.
seem similar to us.
Really?
Seems very different, especially in the production stuff.
Really?
Yeah, the music sounds the way we want it to sound now, as opposed to the way Chris wanted it to sound, which is different.
Really? Well, like what specifically? Like what sort of different things? Which
Like we play the beat on in regular time rather than half time, and we use different kinds of instruments. It's a more band-oriented production.
I think that's the main thing too.
It's more sparse and more spontaneous.
Has it actually changed over the years, though? The actual music?
It changes over each year. Each album there's some sort of development musically or whatever production-wise. It's always changing.
So, do you think it's a case of the times having caught up with you, or you having caught up with the times?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
I think it's not caught up, or it just coincided
it's
with
the
whatever,
same So it tends to increase many times the amount of people who would normally hear your music.
And also, you're communicating inner thoughts as opposed to political type slogans or whatever things are normally communicated in other mediums. That's the good thing about popular music, is that it's really something that's vital, that's being communicated on a mass level rather than like I said before.
So there's a conscious effort at keeping music and politics separate, in your case.
Well, I think that yeah, okay, sure. Simply yes.
Yeah. You want to keep that element out of your music.
I want to keep the overt political jargon and all that kind of thing out of our music. Yeah, I think that our music is political in its own way, though.
What way? What do you mean by that?
In the we have
Right now, we're in sync with what people want, and then I guess we weren't.
it also depends on what radio wants to play at the time. They weren't ready to play our kind of music in mass maybe 5 years ago.
Right.
So what you were talking about, I believe, hits being with communication in the true sense of the word. What exactly did you mean by this? This was in the same
Well-
interview. I believe it was a musician, player, and listener.
It's mass communication. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Pop music is what it is. It's popular, meaning that it reaches the peoples. And when you have a hit, a lot of people hear it more than if you don't have a hit. Especially in AM radio in America, because it it reaches the cross section of people that aren't only music lovers and rock fans and album buyers, but it reaches the casual music listener.